Hey, football fans, welcome back to another episode of Lions Latest, the show where we gather around and talk about the greatest team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. I'm your host, Bryan Hanes, and we have some stuff to go in about the Eagles game and also just some stuff that's been happening this week. So let's jump into the video. But beforehand, if you're not already, guys, we just hit 1,000 subscribers. Make sure if you're not already and you're watching the video, you go hit subscribe, leave a like, and comment letting me know what you'd like to see on the show going further. Comments really help, likes help a lot. But if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that so you don't miss a single video here and you can join the family. With that being said, let's start this video. Start with Gibbs winning. What did he win now? Well, it's obvious that the Detroit Lions running game got going a lot better against the Commanders with Dan Campbell behind the wheel. Jahmyr Gibbs was able to rush for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns, even adding 30 receiving yards on top of that. So he had the game we were waiting for him to have. Gibbs was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week because of his performance against the Commanders, and I think he deserved it because this is one of those Gibbs games we've been waiting for him to have all season. The former Alabama Crimson Tide back is only the second Lions player to secure 40 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons. The first was, of course, Pro Football Hall of Fame running back Barry Sanders. We have talked about the comparisons between these two athletes before, so if you needed another one, here you go. Just saying. With the change in play calls, Detroit's rushing attack looked way more efficient and way more explosive. I think that was the big thing. Against the Vikings, Gibbs only secured 28 scrimmage yards on 12 touches. Not super great. Gibbs even said himself, quote, "Yeah, last week we didn't play even close to our standards. That's probably the worst game we've played since I've been here. We don't want to ever put that on tape again. So pretty much tried to get back on our horse type of game," end quote. And I think that's what it was for a handful set of players, right? I disagree with the whole this was a get back game for Detroit. This is a must turn around game for Detroit. I didn't really see that, but I think individual performances were at stake here. I think there was a few going in the O-line that looked really good, and Gibbs was another one who he really took advantage of the changing in play calls, and it kind of suited his style more when Dan Campbell was behind the wheel. Campbell also noted that he felt the positive energy with the offense and highlighted that the roster was working together to make sure their teammates had a chance to shine when given plays that were called. So far this season, Gibbs has 128 carries for 693 yards and 8 touchdowns. I feel like with a few more games like we saw on last Sunday, Gibbs could get back to his previous season total of 250 touches for 1,412 yards and 16 touchdowns. Now, those last 3 games he had last season definitely gave him that boost to the end, but I think he is our starting back, and I don't see why he can't have a few more of the games he had against the Commanders. That's why we moved him to running back 1 in the first place. I think it's awesome he won this award. I think he absolutely deserves it, and I think this just was kind of a glimpse at what can happen when the offense is being ran in the most efficient way possible, and I think that's why Dan Campbell is honestly taking over for the time being, just to show John Morton what happens when you put the ball in the correct people's hands in the correct scenarios. Just saying, it worked last year and it worked last week. So if we can continue to do that effectively, I think this game against the Eagles will be a fun one to watch. But that's what I have to say on that. Nothing too crazy. You guys can let me know what you thought about Gibbs' performance and what you're expecting him to do next week. So now that we've talked about someone getting an award, being great, are there any MVPs in Detroit? Obviously, last season there was talk about not St. Brown, but Jared Goff being in the MVP race. And this season, it's been kind of quiet on that front for Detroit players. The Lions have been successful on offense over the past several seasons, largely due to Jared Goff. Goff was an MVP candidate last year and has been playing pretty good this season as well, but not quite to that level. However, through the first half of the 2025 season, running back Jonathan Taylor, quarterback Matthew Stafford, and Drake May have been more talked about as the top candidates for the league MVP. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown indicated that Goff should be in the conversation as well during his episode of the St. Brown Bros podcast. Equanimous St. Brown also shared his opinion why the veteran signal caller was not among the leading candidates talked about for league MVP this year. He said, quote, My theory with Jared Goff is because why he is not among the front runners is because he's not like out there in the media. He just gets the job done. He does the job so well. There is no controversy. It's an entertainment sport. So even if he is playing well, it's going to take him having an OD year to win MVP, which sucks. Even though he is a great quarterback, people don't hear his name enough. You guys are a good team, but you guys are a small market. You guys are doing well, but you guys are a small market, which sucks. End quote. And he's got a point. You hear Patrick Mahomes' name so much in the news because he's just one of those. He's now a news type of athlete. He's in the news all the time. He's a name that floats around. Less so with guys like Jared Goff, Josh Allen, another one. Guy played at Wyoming, and now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league for the Bills. Like, it was a story to run off of. And Jared Goff got a good number of publicity when he got traded to the Lions, but that was a few years ago. And now that he's performing well, it had been talked about. But you don't go to the Super Bowl. It's the media switches up fast, so it's less likely he is going to be getting an MVP award just because he's not in the news as much as some of these other guys you're hearing. Right now, it's Drake May, Matthew Stafford, Jonathan Taylor. Those are the three favorites. Allen and Mahomes are very close behind for 4 and 5, which is kind of odd because I don't think either of them are having MVP caliber seasons up to this point. I think Patrick Mahomes has done a good job putting the Chiefs back on the right track, but I don't think he's having a crazy MVP performance. I think it's just Patrick Mahomes, and why isn't his name going to be brought up every year? That's another good point to Academius' point. And Josh Allen, kind of the same deal with him. He's having an all right season, but losing against the Dolphins in the way they did last week would definitely take him out of MVP contesting. And at this point right now, I mean, if it were to end today, I don't think I'd have him in my top 5 after what he did against the Dolphins. Just saying. But I think this could change at any point. Goff was in the top 5 last season, and that was with Ben Johnson. Now, there's all that talk about, is Jared Goff anything without Ben Johnson? Well, if he's doing what he's doing this season, he just needs to be doing a little better in the late half. And if he does that without Ben Johnson, maybe the narrative will change to Jared Goff can do it without the guy everyone says carried him to that position. I think that would even make a better of a case for him if he was able to do it without him. And I think it would be an indicator that he is responsible for the majority of his improvements. I think that would be a really good case for him. And if he could do it, that would be awesome. We're just going to have to see how the rest of the season goes. But for now, I think you could maybe say Gibbs, but no, he's not having a season compared to Jonathan Taylor. Jared Goff is definitely going to be the high runner because he is our quarterback, but so far he needs to do just a little more to get into that spot. But that's what I have to say on that. You guys can let me know. Is there anyone else on the team you think may be contesting for MVP? Maybe St. Brown? Maybe not. Just let me know what you guys think. That'll take us to our third topic. Our third topic, just some updates on players. So first, I want to start with St. Brown. He did issue an apology on his podcast about the whole Trump dance. So if any of you guys were angry in the comments about him doing it in the first place, he's issued an apology. He said he didn't want to offend anybody. It was just, he was doing it just because if there was any president there, he probably would have done their dance, right? But whatever. The real stuff I want to talk about is Jair Alexander, the first and foremost. A familiar foe for the Detroit Lions, but he will not be in the Eagles lineup at Lincoln Financial Field this week. Per the NFL Network, veteran cornerback Jair Alexander is stepping away from football to focus on, quote, getting right physically and mentally, end quote. As a result, the Eagles placed him on reserve/retired list and activated cornerback Jacorian Bennett from injury reserve. Alexander, who did not travel with the Eagles to go play the Packers for Monday Night Football, informed the franchise of his decision to step away on Sunday. Something I didn't know. His decision also comes just 10 days after the Eagles acquired him, along with a 2027 7th-round pick from the Baltimore Ravens before this year's NFL trade deadline in exchange for a 2026 6th-round pick. So basically, the Ravens just got a 6th-round pick for a 7th-round pick. The Ravens won, I guess, but I'd be kind of upset if I was the Eagles. I'd be like, dude, really? You didn't tell us beforehand? Like, you didn't really have your heart in it? That kind of sucks. Before landing with the Ravens and Eagles, Alexander spent the first 7 years of his career with the Green Bay Packers. He became a 2-time All-Pro and 2-time Pro Bowler. Last season in Green Bay, Alexander suffered a knee injury, though, in Week 11 that kept him out for the remainder of the season and required knee surgery. So you can kind of put it as, okay, he played with the Packers. Once he wasn't on the Packers, he didn't feel it anymore. Maybe he just didn't have his heart in it as much. I'm not sure, but it just seems very abrupt for a player playing at his level, right? I don't know, but that's what we got on that. He will not be playing against us on Sunday. They're going to bring up that guy off injury reserve, Bennett. We'll see how well he does. And of course, there will be one more episode that we talk about individual matchups and players and X factors. So be prepared for that later this week. That takes us to our side of the ball. Kirby Joseph, upgraded to questionable from out. So not amazing news, but better news. He's a vital piece of our secondary, and we're going to need him for Sunday if he doesn't play. I'm not saying it's going to be the end of the world, but he definitely is one of those X-factor players in your secondary to help make some big plays when you might need him. Sailors, who missed last week's game, has been upgraded to questionable. I'd really like to see his growth in kickoff returns. I think another UFL guy coming up to the NFL getting his chance. He's been solid so far in kickoff returns, not so great at times, but I think we're starting to see these flashes from him. If he can work on his vision a little better and just get that much faster, I think we'll start to see explosive things from him. Miles Frazier and Josh Paschal both listed as out but are getting reps in practice still. So, hey, that window opened up last week. We're starting to see it a little more and more. Hopefully they're back sooner than later. And still no news on Terrion Arnold. Still taking it day by day. Still under that concussion protocol. Another one that we really would like to have against the Eagles, especially with guys like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown down in that open field. Having a guy like him is going to be really, really good to play it on one of them, at least one of them, right? We don't want to have to start double teaming guys because then Dallas Goedert is underneath and does whatever he wants to our defense. So hopefully he comes back too. But that's all I got on players right now. Apology from St. Brown. Jair Alexander apparently just done with football before a big game against the Lions. I don't know. Kirby Joseph starting to get better, it seems like. Sailors getting better. I'd love to see more production from him. And Miles Frazier and Josh Paschal, two guys I would really like to see come in for backup sooner than later, especially with some of the injuries we're having. So good news up there all around. That's going to take us to our fourth and final topic. Some of your responses from earlier this week, starting with 21 Nixon Me 6 says, I guess there was footage of St. Brown hitting him earlier, but if they are punishing St. Brown now, they should then it should go the same with the Branch situation. There was footage of him getting an illegal hit, and even though there was footage, Branch appealed it and nothing happened. If they want to look at every game and suspend players for missed calls, they would have to cancel the whole season for a ton of suspensions. Yeah, no, you have a really good point there, 21 Nixon Me. I think yeah, okay, so I've seen a lot of you guys were commenting that St. Brown actually hit first and that it wasn't much of a hit, but it still was physical contact. I don't know. But that's you make a good point, right? If you're gonna go back and do that, then there's no double there's no double standard. You need to be able to do it for each play, right? And especially with like the Brian Branch situation. Yeah, I mean it was a missed call in game. It wasn't like it was just a hit, like some guy going out of his way to hit him. But still, it's the whole reasons for why stuff happening. The NFL either needs to do a better job at it or just drop it after the game is over. Because I don't know. I see what you're saying here. It needs to be one or it needs to be all of them or none of them type of deal. And I don't know. If we had St. Brown suspended for the Eagles game this late after the fact, I would lose my mind a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't really see it happening. But thank you, 21 Nicks on me at 6. I appreciate it. Unca Doug 2715 says, is it possible that Morton was trying hard not to be the second coming of Ben Johnson? It seems he'd start the game strong, but then with a lead, he would turn more conservative as to not make mistakes, instead of keeping the pedal on the metal. I've always felt in the NFL, if you jump out to an early lead, you keep pounding your opponent with what you got until there is no mercy. Yeah, I totally agree with you on this one, Uncle Doug. I think a big part of some of our success last year was even if we started to let games go a little bit in the second half or in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, we had enough of a lead where it didn't really matter. And I get where Morton may be coming from, not making mistakes, not forcing throws, not giving up fumbles when you don't need to be. But it just, with Ben Johnson, it just seemed like it rolled so much smoother. And I've seen, like you said, I've seen Morton go off to these good starts where he starts putting on points or whatever, and then he just goes to these check down passes, these screen passes, plays that start behind the line of scrimmage, and it's gross. You're giving the defense an indicator that you're going to be conservative, and then they can go and get more takeaways. Totally see what you're saying there. I think that's kind of why Dan Campbell took it over more, just to show what the identity of the offense is a little more to our OC, and hopefully he picks it up sooner than later, and then Dan Campbell can go focus on something else. But I appreciate your comment, Uncle Doug. Thank you so much. With that being said, we don't have time for today in this video. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Lions Latest. If you made it to this point in the video, tell me what your opinions are on the Eagles matchup and if there's anything I should be looking in specifically for my video tomorrow. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss a single video here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.